very good afternoon to you all. I'm not so familiar with your protocol, so all I'll say is all protocol having been observed, I'll get straight to my story. I know Solomon personally, so when one of your organizers walked me up to him and said, I'd like you to meet the MC and the moderator of the session, I said to him, thank you very much, but no need for introductions because Solomon and I go way back 10 years now, having known each other from our professional circles. My name is Joseph Ajal. I'm a human resources practitioner. I'm a certified professional coach, and I'm the president of the International Coaching Federation Uganda Charter Chapter. Now, you might be wondering, why is a human resources practitioner here at a mental health conference? Why is this gentleman who is a coach talking to us on matters of mental health? He's neither a doctor, nor a psychiatrist, nor a nurse, nor a therapist. What is he doing here? The reason I'm sharing my story with you is that I had a spouse, and I use the word had deliberately here because she's deceased. On 28th of March of this year, I lost my wife to a mental illness. And not only was she mentally ill, she committed suicide. So, when I heard Dr. Kalani talking about the challenges of mental illnesses in communities and in facilities that provide medical services at the Ministry of Health and so on, I couldn't help but resonate. For me, it's not a theory. I was married to Sinai, my wife, for 16 and a half years. We'd dated for 2.5 earlier. So we'd literally been in a relationship for 18 and a half years. Courted for 2, married for 16 and a half. And if she hadn't passed away on 28th of March of this year, by August this year, we would have been married for 17 years. This is our 17th year running. She was 37. So, the reason I'm here is to give more credibility to the concern of most Ugandans about the need for more funding and support, and especially for us as society to stop the stigma that's surrounded with mental illnesses. Health, Ministry of Health, has a block of only 7% or less, maybe 6 point something, of our national budget, maybe 6, I don't know, I stand to be corrected. But of all of that, mental health has only 1%. So what is 1% of 6% of the entire block? It's a drop in the ocean. It's not enough. But it's the responsibility of every one of us to stand up and be counted in the fight against mental illnesses. How so? You might ask yourself, what is my role in this? I'm a reporter, I'm a journalist, or I'm a doctor, I'm a nurse, but I'm not in the mental space. I'm perhaps a pediatrician, I'm a teacher, I'm a civil society leader, I'm a politician, I'm a banker, I'm a regulator. Whatever it is you do, it's irrelevant. Every one of us in this room knows somebody who is dealing with a mental struggle somewhere. These people are not the people that are undressed and on the streets walking around naked. No, that is a misnomer. It could be that they are mentally ill, but that's the extreme end of mental illness. These people are CEOs like myself. These people are MPs like Honorable Betty Bachireke Namboze. These people are sitting in cabinet as ministers. Some of them are permanent secretaries. Others are general managers, heads of HR. Successful entrepreneurs. My wife was a very successful entrepreneur. She was a CEO and founder of 2 companies. She made quite a good amount of money. But she was mentally ill too. These people are in our communities. They are our children, our teenagers. They are our mothers, our fathers, our sisters and our brothers, our grandparents, our aunts and uncles. They are in this room right here, right now. If I ran a secret ballot survey and asked you in the room right here, right now, how many of you are suffering, not just suspecting, but are suffering from mental illness, you'd be surprised. The New Vision last week led with a headline that said, no, the week before last, 14 million Ugandans are known to be suffering from mental illnesses. Now, for a population of 43 million, 14 million is 32% of our national population. And from my research on mental health that I did through the World Health Organization and the Cornell University, I found out that based on World Health Organization statistics, the global population of 8-something billion people, 30% of those are mentally sick. In other words, they've been diagnosed and are either receiving treatment or they know for a fact. Well, what about those who don't know? Sadly, there might be even more, but they'll never know until somebody does the research. Mental health is one of the least funded areas of health. The number of psychiatrists, now I stand to be corrected again, when I speak these statistics, those of you who know for a fact should correct me if I'm wrong. But from my research, there are only 53 psychiatrists in Uganda. 53. For a population of 47 million, some 14 million of whom are sick, how can 53 psychiatrists treat 43 million people? It's practically impossible. So we need more funding. We need more doctors, more nurses, more clinicians, more therapists, counselors, and so on. All these professionals who are in the value chain of providing assistance to mentally ill people, we need to increase research in this space. We need to provide more support for patients and especially their caregivers. As the husband of a woman who was mentally sick all her married life, and I didn't know until much, much later, I'll tell you the caregiver, the principal and primary caregiver, faces just as much pain, if not more, than the sufferer. When she would not sleep, I would not sleep. When she would smash plates and cups on walls and throw knives around the house, I was the victim. I was the one suffering broken bones and wounds all over my body as well. And I was hiding from colleagues at work. I would put on a tie and a suit, but below the suit and tie I had nail marks dug into my neck the night before because she went into a violent episode. And all the plates and cups, back in the day, people brought lots of wedding gifts in form of plates and cups and glasses. So we had lots of china in the kitchen. And when she got an attack, she was schizophrenic. So schizophrenia presents with a lot of violent episodes. She would swing the plates until every one last bit of them was finished to the walls. So imagine a set of plates is 12, a dozen plates. And another is 12, and another is 12. So 36, assuming there were 3 sets that night. She would not stop until the last plate was finished on the wall, while screaming and yelling, and this was long before we had a child. And even when we had children, we have 3 sons, this never stopped. So as the principal caregiver, the family members are just as much in pain, if not more. Because we know what we're dealing with, they don't. They are held captive by their mental illness. She was a good person, very kind and generous and loving, beautiful, well-spoken, well-educated, and a very successful entrepreneur, a good mother too. But when she would have those episodes of mental illness, the home was impossible to live in pretty much. But I stayed for 17 years. And the following morning, because she would become cognizant of what she has done, when the tempers have gone down and she's sort of a bit more understanding of herself, she would apologize. She would go and make breakfast and try and give me breakfast in bed, prepare stuff for the children. She's an amazing cook, by the way. She made amazing cuisines. Or she would offer to take us all out for lunch or dinner and say, it's on me, I'm paying. And she would apologize and be so contrite. And she would shed tears, genuine tears of pain and hurt and regret. And she would be sweeping the glasses and the plates off the floor and saying, maybe this time it's me to replace those broken glasses and plates and cups. I said, never mind, I'll pick the bill. At times like those, the kids and I would be shedding tears of physical pain and empathy for her, but also for ourselves, for the amount of trauma we were dealing with. And I still was successful at my job. I'm an award-winning human resources practitioner. I've won 6 awards in 5 years. And when I say awards, I'm not just talking local awards, I'm talking global awards, international, from Washington, D.C., from New York, from Mauritius, from India, from different parts of the world. For case in point, in 2015, the most outstanding contributor to the field of learning and development in Africa was me, Mauritius, 2015. 2017, same, most outstanding contribution to the field of learning and development in the whole of Africa by the Human Resource Development Congress, global body. That was me. But at home, it was chaotic. It was turmoil. So I channeled my energy into being a better professional at the workspace because work became a way for me to escape from the turmoil at home. Now, I loved her, and she loved me. But I also knew we were dealing with something far more serious than love could resolve, or prayers for that matter. So fast forward, I'm out of the country for about a month last year, between October and November. And my wife calls me every day, several times. And if you don't pick her call, you are in serious trouble. Why didn't you pick my call? I was in a meeting. But it's your wife calling. You should pick. Prioritize me. I said, but I was training. I was facilitating. The time zones between Uganda and the US is 9 or 8 hours or many other hours depending on the state you're in. So the state I was in, it was a 9-hour difference. So I'm like, you're calling me, it's 3 a.m., I'm fast asleep. So you can't expect me to pick the call immediately. Maybe I was fast asleep. I don't care, I'm your wife, you need to talk to me now. I said, okay, fine. So when I came back to Uganda, I reached out to her mother and her sister, and I said to them, she's not okay. The episodes of paranoia are getting worse. Let me give you an example. Whenever we drove out of home, we never used the same route to leave the house or to come back on a daily. Never, ever, not even once. She made sure we drove using another route and to come back home using another route than the one that we used to leave in the morning. Why? She felt she was being trailed, monitored, or followed. And any car that overtook us, she would tell me, stop, they are tailgating us. Any border that overtook us, she would say, stop, that border has been sent by the mafia to kill me. She was schizophrenic, so she had paranoia. And she had a victimhood kind of paranoia. These are distorted thoughts, distorted mindset that makes you imagine things, illusions or delusions. And hers was the persecutory kind of delusions. So she felt that the whole world persecuted or hated her and didn't want her alive anymore. So she would constantly run away from people at the height of her illness when she was very acute. And she would make me stop the car 3, 4, 5, 6 times on the way from home to office every day. Even on her own. The other thing I observed living with her is that obviously her anger management was non-existent. I can't even use the word poor. She simply didn't have any stops or barriers when she felt anger for anything. So she was extremely possessive of me and very jealous of any female, whether her own sisters or my co-workers. So I constantly, when I got to a new job, I prepared my co-workers, the females, and I said, because the human resource profession that I'm in is predominantly female. The coaching profession that I lead in Uganda is also predominantly female. I don't know why, but that's the way it is. So I'd prepare my co-workers and tell them, if you get a call from my wife any day, just understand, please. Don't take it personally. Because she did that a lot. And then, from the very beginning, when we were still dating, before we even got married, we were not even living together. She was already showing signs of extreme jealousy, extreme anger, and possessiveness. She would never let me speak to any female, even if that female was her own sister. if she was not around. Even at the church where you think it's a safe space, she would pick up on one or two sisters and say, that one, I don't like her. She might have a thing for you. And I'd be like, I don't even know her name. What does she look like? You must know her, the way you looked at her in church the other day. Be like, but who are you talking about? And so that was the reality I was living with. So my appeal to you, friends, is number one, be mindful and watchful of all the red flags and signs of mental illnesses. Mentally ill people, like I said at the start, don't look like the way we thought they did back then. That's just somebody who is ill but also not cared for well. If a mentally ill person is looked after well, they will dress well, they'll smell good, they'll speak well, they are highly educated, they'll do everything you and I do. They'll be dressed like I'm dressed, in a suit. They'll be sitting in cabinet meetings and in parliament. They'll be driving a big VX car. They'll own real estate all over the city and the countryside. They'll be normal looking until their behavior kicks in, and then you realize this person is actually not normal. They are sick. So when I returned to Uganda, I took her through the persuasion of her sisters and her mother to a mental health facility in Entebbe. It's called the Entebbe Lakeside Hospital. It's owned and run by Professor Segane Musisi, one of Uganda's finest psychiatrists. He's a professor. You understand when a person becomes, by the time they're a professor, they have really achieved the height of their profession. So he took her into admission, began to treat her for 8 days. She left when she was fairly fine. And when she went home, after 3 days of taking her medication, she looked on the pack. It said olanzapine. All of you healthcare professionals know that drug. It's for treating schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and many other mental illnesses. It helps to regulate their moods, rebalance their chemistry in the mind and in the bloodstream. And obviously, with therapy and counseling, they can recover and become healthy again. So she said this drug treats mental diseases like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. And for me, I don't have any of those illnesses. So she rejected the treatment. I also went ahead and got the service of a therapist, and I got 4 sessions for her, locked in, and I called the therapist. I said, my wife is coming to see you. I gave her the number of the therapist and said, you go make an appointment with so-and-so. She's waiting for you. She never showed up to this very date. She didn't show up. The therapy sessions were already booked, sorted out everything. They went to waste. Professor himself said to me, in addition to treatment, she needs therapy and counseling to accept this condition such that she can adhere to the treatment. She rejected the therapy, she rejected the counseling, she rejected the treatment, she rejected everything. And long story short, she got increasingly ill. Now, when you're mentally ill, because the mind or the brain is the central processing unit of your body, the central nervous system is controlled by the brain, then it's like a computer that is malfunctioning at its very core, which is the central processing unit. The whole of that computer will not be good. So if your mind is sick, your whole body will equally become sick. And so she became also progressively physically ill. And so she was treating all manner of physical ailments except the mental one, because she rejected the therapy, she rejected the diagnosis and the treatment, because I believe primarily due to stigma. She's self-stigmatized. Then she felt, what will the world think of me? When they hear Mrs. Ajal is mentally sick, when they hear Sinai, because that was her name, and she was a successful entrepreneur, what will my clients hear when they think of me when they hear that I'm sick or I'm admitted? And so she kept blaming me. Why did you bring me to a mental facility? Why? You should never have brought me here in the first place, when she found out that she was admitted there. And even to accept the admission was forceful. Dr. Kalani talked about sometimes the need for forceful admission in the event of emergency. Professor Musisi deemed that it was an emergent situation. She was acute. And so she could not be released to go home. He told me 3 things will happen in his office in Entebbe. Young man, 3 things are bound to happen if I don't admit your wife. Number 1, she will kill herself. Number 2, she will kill you. Number 3, she will kill all the children plus you. So you will have 5 bodies in the house. Because she's acute. I need to admit her. She said, I cannot accept to be admitted. She got out of the doctor's office, slammed the door, walked out. It took another huge amount of convincing and persuasion to bring her back. She says, I thought you brought me here to receive medical sleeping pills. Why am I now being told that I have schizophrenia? I told her, but none of us is a professional in that space. It's the doctors who are saying that. So it took 5 strong men to pin her to receive her first shot, to sedate her. And then they kept sedating up to 5 shots. 5, not 1, 5 shots. She was physically strong, very, and fighting everybody. She was sending me pictures because I made sure to leave the hospital compound as soon as she got admitted. The doctor told me, now leave. You'll make it harder for us to treat her. And to even get her to sit in the seat, the sisters told her eventually I had arrived at the hospital compound. So I drove in as soon as she was inside the hospital, the doctor's office, and I drove out as soon as they had admitted her so that I would not interfere with the treatment. And I let her go through that very painful process. And it was for her own good and the good of our family and her, her larger family as well. So long story short, she, ultimately rejected everything and went on a spiral, a downward spiral until 28th of March. We had a barbecue on 27th, which was Sunday. On Friday, 25th, she told me the flat iron is spoiled. I believed her. I tested it in the socket, it didn't light. I don't know whether it was genuinely spoiled or she had removed the fuse. I don't know. Sunday, we have a barbecue. We have a family tradition of barbecuing, even though we had stopped for a very long time from inviting friends over because she had become more reclusive and very aggressive and very sedentary in her lifestyle. She didn't want people around her anymore. So we had stopped inviting friends and family over, not even relatives. It was just me, the 3 kids, herself, and our worker, only us. So we had our barbecue by ourselves on Sunday. She was in a good mood. On Monday morning, as I was leaving to go to work, I normally leave home at 6 in the morning because I need to drop off the children at school and go to office. She gave the kids a very long hug that morning. She kept lingering. The hugs went on and on and on and on. So I would send one child who was already in the car, go tell your brothers to come and we go. It's time. And he would not come back also. He would also still be in the mother's embrace, being hugged. She would kiss them on the cheeks. She really hugged them tightly for so long. 15 minutes, I was still seated in the garage waiting for the children with the engine running because I wanted them to hurry up. Then I was reversing the car out of the garage. She stood at the garage door and waved at me for a very long time. She kept waving. She managed a small smile, I could tell. In the dim lights, she kept waving, and I could read her lips because we lip read sometimes to each other to avoid the kids eavesdropping. And she was telling me, you're a good man, and kept waving for so long. That wave was so long, like a whole 3 minutes long. And then she came. Normally, because she had become sick, she would just walk back and bolt the garage door and go back inside and sleep. But this time she stood right there at the garage door and walked all the way to the front of the garage door, continued waving at me, even as I reversed out of the gate. I went to office, dropped off the kids at school. 8:15 a.m., I see a message from her on WhatsApp telling me her bank balance is so much, and then telling me, thank you so much for being a terrific father and a great husband. Those were her last messages to me. 8:15 a.m. So I texted back and I was like, oh, congratulations, you have money on your account. She's like, thank you. Then she responded and said, sorry, that message was not intended for you. It was meant for somebody else. Apparently, she had sent the same message also to her older sister about her bank balance. And I'd also given her older sister her ATM card and PIN. They didn't suspect anything. At exactly 12:17 p.m., I'm seated in my office. A call comes through from my caretaker back home, and he says, my first son is called Terence, so he calls me Tata Terence. He says, Tata Terence, young Wojeka, hurry and come back home now. He ordered me. I was like, huh, my worker orders me. Okay, good. And he had no politeness in his voice. It was very urgent. I said, what is it? So I suspected there is an emergency, but of what kind? Because children are at school. If the kids were home, I would worry that one of the kids has broken an arm or injured himself or fallen in hot water, whatever. But these boys are in school. So what could be the emergency? And he said to me, just stop whatever you're doing and come home now. He ordered me. I asked, okay, I'm coming, but you need to tell me what the issue is. He said, I can't tell you. So I hung up. I got another phone call from a head of academics at the school where our kids go. And he tells me, Joe, have you heard? I said, heard what? I acted like I didn't know. He said, that phone call you've just got? Like, yeah, but I have no confirmation of it. Can I confirm? So I called back my caretaker at home, and I said, now, since you can't talk to me, hand over the phone to a neighbor. So he handed over the phone to the neighbor. The LC secretary for women is my immediate neighbor, next house. And she says, I'm sorry, neighbor, but I have to break the news to you. I said, what are you seeing? She tells me, we're standing outside your gate because we can't access your compound, and I can see your wife has committed suicide by hanging. I said, really? Okay. So I called back the gentleman at the school to confirm to him. Of course, his wife knows us. We know the family. We are together. The wife is the one who had brought the gentleman who works for us at home. So she had broken down in tears. She was already crying. So I drove home. And when I got home, I had a visual confirmation of what my neighbor had actually said. So at the end of it all, we put her. Well, the police took her down. They took statements from me, from my caretaker, from the neighbors, went through the post-mortem. We shared with them evidence from Entebbe Lakeside Hospital that this has been a mental health patient for long and that we've battled this disease all our lives. They said, sorry, permission to go ahead and proceed with burial granted. So we buried her on the 2nd of April. Now, I stand here today as a single father and a widower, not because of circumstances that I wanted, but that I found myself in. It's because of mental health that I am no longer married, and I'm a father to children who don't have a mother anymore. It's because of mental illnesses. Now, I want to encourage all of you listening here today. Please, if you see the following red flags in your family members, do not take them lightly. Take them seriously, because you might lose a loved one. On Saturday morning, I was on Andrew Chamagero's Twitter live. We did a Twitter space. It lasted 5.5 hours. We had over 10,000 listeners from 28 countries. The issue of mental health is a serious matter. And I trend on 2 hashtags. The first one is Stop the Stigma, and the second one is Raise Mental Health Awareness. If any of you is on social media, those are the 2 hashtags you must follow. Stop the Stigma and Raise Mental Health Awareness. Also, we might add Raise Mental Health Funding. Hashtag Raise Mental Health Funding. Raise Mental Health Research. So, when we stop stigmatizing against ourselves as a society, more of our people will accept that they are mentally sick and seek therapy, treatment, counseling, and heal. These are good members of our society. They can live productive lives. For as long as we put the money where our mouth is and provide the support of family, that these people will recover and live a productive and healthy life. May my sad and unfortunate story act as an impetus and a motivation to all of you who have doubts to rise up to the occasion. Look out for the red flags, things like sleeplessness, insomnia, sleep apnea, poor anger management or lack of it, obsessiveness to the extreme degree. You hear about things like OCD. We joke about OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Too much being clean, washing hands all the time, fear of germs and pathogens. Post-traumatic stress disorder for people who have gone through a traumatic experience. Post-COVID stress. COVID was a trauma on its own already. So post-COVID stress disorder is there. Yes. And other things, bipolar disorder, extreme mood swings. One day they are happy, one day they are sad. One day they are exuberant, one day they are crying. When they work 20 hours a day. That was my wife. When they are sad and depressed, they sleep 20 hours a day. Same person. No consistency in moods. Extreme flips in behavior and mood swings. These are all telltale signs. We love our people, but let's look out for these signs and let's seek the help of these professionals in the room and beyond, and let's support them to recover and live a productive life. That we shall have saved so many families. And finally, before I step away from this platform, as we did the Twitter Spaces with Andrew Chamagero on Saturday, a lady called Andrew Chamagero of NTV. I did a story for NTV as well last week on the news. It ran on the news. And she said she had given away 2 of her children to her sister, written a suicide note. She was in her car driving to the expressway to commit suicide by way of an accident. And because she had turned on her Twitter, she was listening to me speak on her phone. She changed her mind and she says, I will no longer commit suicide. And 2 other testimonies also came during that Twitter live. They were inboxing him, they would DM him and tell him exactly the same thing. And others spoke out, even from Washington, D.C. and Chicago. 2 other people came up and confessed, having the same sentiment. So if you have a member of your family who says, I want to give up on life, I'm suicidal, don't take it lightly. It's a real threat. In fact, out there, they put them on suicide watch. Here, we might not have a suicide watch, but there's help groups that can be assisting them. Take them to a hospital. Let them be contained in the hospital. Utabika is free. The National Referral Hospital is free, and other government hospitals. If you want to go to a private facility because of stigma, that's entirely your choice if your budgets can allow you to do that. But for goodness sake, stop the stigma, let the people accept and receive treatment, and we shall save more lives.